Welcome to the Jockey Club, a podcast looking at the movie Let It Ride, one scene at a time. My name is Dan Delgado, and we're at historic Hialeah Park where one man is having the best day of his life.
I'm having a good day.
So come on in and hang out while we talk about this day and the greatest movie of all time, Let It Ride. Don't worry about that guy at the door. I've got you covered. You can even
take my seat to the Jockey Club.
Welcome back to the Jockey Club. This episode, we're discussing the fifth scene of Let It Ride, which, if you're playing along at home, this is where Trotter and Looney head back to the track from Marty's bar. It's from minute 15:37 to minute 18:22. Joining me at my usual table for the second time in a row is the writer of the official Netflix DVD blog and the host of the Cinema Shame podcast, the man with three first names, Mr. James David Patrick. So come on, take your seat and let's ride into this scene. So, James, here we go. We are picking up right after leaving Marty's bar, which is definitely not the Lucky Horseshoe Cafe. So, we've got Looney, we've got Jay, and we're going back across to the track, and we're getting some nice shots of horses. We're getting a look at what the track looks like.
It's a little romantic, like the way that they're portraying the track here.
Yeah.
The sun is glistening off the horses. They're showing them in all their glory, and it's a nice little segue back into the track.
Yeah, it almost feels like for a minute you're watching The Sport of Kings, right? It does. There's a bit of, I don't know, almost pageantry to it as everyone's watching the horses kind of like come out and get around, and lots of tourists just sort of gathering. And here we have...
Let's hit pause here because I will do my favorite thing, which is going back to the screen.
Oh, you know what? This has become my favorite thing. So let's do it. What have you got for me, James?
Because I think this is an important distinction in the way that the movie was adapted once again.
Okay.
This little blurb, this tiny little segue
Right.
in particular is important to see how it was taken from script to screen.
Mm-hmm.
So in the script, it is played as comedy. There's none of these magnificent beasts. So I'm going to take this verbatim from the description. It's not a pretty sight. The one horse, Myrtle's Delight, is trying to scratch its stomach with its back leg. The 3-horse, Shy Ruler, has its cheeks blown full of air. The 7-horse, Blurred Image, Marty's Hot Flash, is biting at flies. The 8-horse, Low Fat, bringing back Low Fat for you.
Thank you.
Is watching ants. That's the introduction to this scene.
I don't really know how they were going to get these horses to do those particular things. That you were going to get Blurred Image to look at ants, to have the other one. I don't know that was going to really be realistic. Even though it really gives you the idea that they are going to some dumpy track with some old dumpy horses.
Yep.
Instead of what we're getting, which is a lot of sunshine, and it just looks beautiful there.
It does. It looks like a beautiful horse track. It looks like this would be something that you could partake in and just enjoy the spectacle of the arena.
Yes.
Horses running, like, very majestic.
Yes.
And we're also introduced to a character called Mickey Jacks here. He's not named, as far as I know, in the movie itself. He pops in later to say something about the 5-horse, I think.
Well, he actually shows up in the third scene.
He reappears, but I don't think is he ever named?
No, he's never named. But
okay.
He shows up and he has an interaction with Trotter. Trotter just lifts, I guess, $20 from him, gives it to Looney. You see him. He's kind of, I don't know. I guess he's hustling the old ladies as they're getting off the bus.
Yes.
Which is funny because when he pops up here, and I totally forgot that he reappeared here. Anytime he shows up again, it's like, oh yeah. When he shows up here, what is he doing? He's going immediately to an old lady to try to get her to bet. And it's funny because, all right, so we're almost skipping ahead, but we might as well go with it. So,
Well, I was gonna before we jump ahead to him in a second.
Yeah.
He has a line that was excised here.
give it to
And
me.
he says, "I'm dizzy just smelling the glue," reinforcing this vision of a bunch of decrepit nags
Oh,
in
wow.
the sport of who can be less worse, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very different version of what we're getting here. I mean, there is some of that cynicism running throughout the film, but it hits you hard in this transition from the bar to the racetrack.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I mean, if you go with this idea that the track has dumpy horses, which then will make you think that this is not a very good track, right? You'll
Right.
think, oh, this is some, I don't know, some bust out track out somewhere. But when you get to the Jockey Club later on in the movie, those people who are elevated, living their little hoity-toity lives, they would not go to some dumpy old track. If there wasn't majestic beasts around, if it wasn't nice, like those people that are up there, those rich jerks, aren't going to dirty old tracks, are they? I wouldn't think so.
It's not played that way. No, we're not supposed to see them as, I don't know, bourgeois or
Mm-hmm.
like especially gauche. Like, I mean, they are, but they're not. I mean, I guess you could say that this is just like they're big fish in a small pond.
Oh, sure.
Like if you wanted to interpret it that way.
No doubt,
But
no
again,
doubt.
I agree with you. I don't see this as like the dump that this particular scene transition is making it out to be. And maybe in a visual way, this is presenting Trotter's day as more worthwhile. Like, does it take away from his achievement if we're slumming it?
Yeah.
I mean, you can even take it one step further and think, well, what if this is a dog track, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the way it seems like the script was reading here. It wanted to take it down. And that's definitely not the best direction for the movie, because it really does show sort of the really engaging side of the sport.
Yeah, it's interesting because this script sounds like it's so much darker than what the movie is.
There's a lot of cynicism.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And again, man, I really hate the idea that you're telling me these things and I'm constantly thinking, oh, I'm so glad they didn't do that. Because that's generally not how you think of things. You usually think, oh, gee, if not for studio interference, if not for those test screenings, we would have gotten something even better. But now, every time you interject with one of these things, I'm like, no, I think this was a good change. Now, in the script, at any point, is the track named?
I haven't paid attention to that.
Okay, I'm gonna guess that it's probably not. They don't even.
I don't think it.
They don't even name it in the movie.
You know, I don't remember it, but that doesn't mean it's not there because I wasn't looking for it. But I do not remember it being a point of mention.
Yeah, I don't even think they name it in the movie at all. I don't ever recalling it coming up.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, let's get to where we were, where Trotter and Looney are heading back to the track. And so Looney goes up to the railing, and there he says hello to Evangeline. He does not say hello to Sid. Sid shoots him a funny look, which I think is a nice little moment. And then he calls Trotter over. Hey, look, I've got room for you over here. And Trotter and Sid engage with a very interesting little hello, which makes me wonder, do these guys actually like each other? I don't know. No?
I think it's a relationship of convenience.
Okay.
A familiarity.
Okay. Because
I don't get the impression that Trotter is really fond of any of them.
No, he probably isn't, right? He probably isn't. But I just think how in the previous scene when Sid shows up, he says, where's Trotter? Like, hey, gang's all here. Wait, my pal Trotter's missing. And then when they see each other, I don't know. The hello is very funny. You get the impression that, maybe not so friendly. Anyway, this is where Sid decides to, I don't know, is he trying to impress Evangeline by espousing the wisdom of, you take a horse with a large ass in a field like this and you got a winner. That's his expert analysis on what's going on, which is great. I don't know if anyone's impressed by this, but I guess I didn't really register what Evangeline thought. I know she asked Trotter, who he's betting on, and Looney answers for him, saying it's the 4-horse, which Trotter's not into that. Let's not share our pick to everyone. Sid has Sid has to immediately mention, like what
It's got leprosy.
what a joke. Yeah, this is the first time we're hearing what a joke it is that the 4-horse is so terrible. Although, if you think of like, I remember thinking, how does everybody know that this horse is so terrible?
It's almost like it's the number that's bad, right? Because the way they respond, they talk about the 4-horse. Do they, especially with Sid, you wonder how much does he actually, with the comments before this, how much does he actually know about horses beyond divining? Oh, the number 4 is never good. Never bet on the 4. Like, has he really analyzed these horses that are just walking out now? And this is his expert opinion. And that's probably, I mean, Trotter knows he's full of shit.
I think so, absolutely. I mean, his big analysis that we've had so far is if you get a horse with a large ass, your goal. That's where the money goes. Come out.
Well, it's like this is the moment where it's like Trotter knows he doesn't know anything,
Yes.
but he knows that Sid knows even less.
That's true. That's true.
And maybe and that's the wisdom, right? So when you know nothing, that's the true wisdom.
Ah, yes, that's true. That's true. A lot of these guys don't really, and you know, this is a good scene for that because not only does Sid espouse some faux knowledge, I think Looney does as well when he's trying to interpret what the horse owners are saying to the jockey, which is coming up, and then whatever Mickey Jacks is saying to the random old lady. So let me just run it down. Sid says that horse has leprosy. This is a great Richard Dreyfuss delivery of, this is a horse race. This isn't the Olympics. Like,
right.
So many of his line deliveries are so good.
This scene has a couple of real Richard Dreyfuss bangers too.
Absolutely.
For such a short scene, it's packed with Richard Dreyfuss lines.
Like every line he says, it's not only is the line solid, but his delivery of it is just perfect.
It's got, every line has a different, I mean, I guess you could say spin on it because they're not straight line deliveries.
Absolutely not. No, they are not. All right, so this is where a random old lady, probably from the bus that we saw earlier in the third scene, shows up and just mentions, that she likes Charity as well. She likes the number 4 horse. And
a cute nose.
It's got a cute nose, which is a great reason to bet. And Mickey Jack seemingly just appears out of thin air. Foomp, and points out, listen, the 5 horse is a mortal lock. And you know he's looking to have her give him some money to, please, give me some cash. I will go bet this for you. This is the second time we've heard the phrase mortal lock. Sid says it in the scene prior when he walks into Marty's bar. That whatever, I don't remember which horse he's looking at, but it's, whatever it is, it's a mortal lock and I'm going to wheel him. This is also, the next thing is that Charity's conscious. Like,
right.
Finally.
Which is another great little eccentric line delivery from Richard Dreyfuss here.
Yes. Noticing that
Charity's conscious.
What are we actually excited about? The horse is actually
the horse is upright on the track.
It's awake. And this is where Looney sees the 2 guys from the cab who were having the conversation that has spurned everything. And another Dreyfuss great delivery is that this is in the bag. That confidence right there.
Right. Now that's the first time he believes something.
Yes. Right?
Before the last scene, he's praying for something.
And now he's positive. Maybe, is it because he sees what those 2 guys actually look like? And they're both a couple of guys wearing suits. They look like they've got money in their pocket. They look like they know what they're doing. They're out there. They
look like they wouldn't throw that much money down the toilet.
That's right. That's right. And so
they look like success. They look like what he aspires to be.
And this is where those guys, one of them leans into the jockey and Looney comes up with the idea. He's probably telling him to go wide on the first turn, as though this is
more of the group's infinite wisdom about horse racing.
Yes, this great strategy.
Stay wide around the first turn.
Stay wide around the first turn, whatever that means. I have no idea if that's legit or not. Anyway.
Oh, he's running more.
I know.
Yes, he's making the race longer.
I know. It doesn't sound like a good idea, right?
Doesn't sound like good advice.
And so.
But again, I don't know.
And so Trotter is reading the man's lips as he talks to the jockey. And he says, "Go fast and win." Yes, that's it. Go fast and win. What a great phrase. And it sure does look like that's what he says, right?
Yep.
Like, okay,
Means the fix is in. Go fast and win.
go fast and win. We've been holding you back these last few races. So maybe that's why everybody thinks that Charity is a bad horse. Maybe they've seen the other races where that horse is held back and intentionally lost. And now shackles are off. Go fast and win. And immediately, I love how these things just happen, right? So Trotter interprets what the man says. And then the two of them look at each other, and then they look at the board that has all of the odds on it. And the odds on Charity drop from 40 to 1 to 20 to 1, which is a pretty big drop, letting you know that someone has made probably a decent-sized bet on that horse, right?
I think that the editing here and the editing in this movie is pristine. Like the way this movie keeps it going forward. We talked about this in the last episode. But I think it does a good job of explaining to people what's happening without over-explaining it, which you could through dialogue. They don't over-explain how the bet was made and the odds drop because of the bet. They look at the odds, they change. He made the bet.
Yes.
Now let's go.
Yes.
And I think even for the uninformed viewer who doesn't know anything about horse racing, I think they understand everything that's happening here without any of that extra. And the movie is very good about that, keeping it going forward without bogging it down in the semantics of horse racing.
Now, are any of these cuts the way that this plays out, where they look at each other, they look at the board, and then they see that the bet has been made? Is that how it is in your script?
The scene is jumbled a little bit. Largely, that exchange, there is a couple more lines that have been excised.
Okay.
But go fast and win, and then they scan the odds. It changes. That sticks to the beats of the script pretty well.
Okay, got it. All right, so now Trotter is going to go off and make his bet, and he has this great exchange with Looney. Looney asks him, "Do you really think Charity could win?" And then Trotter is now going to list all of the reasons. Well, let's see. I'm walking around in yesterday's suit, which I love the phrase, yesterday's suit. I wonder, does Jay wear a suit every day? I don't know. That he told his wife he was going to stop gambling, that he was going to move back in with her right after work, which we presume is this morning, since they seem to be driving cabs on the overnight shift, and that he could hear her telling her lawyer to go for his balls. And so he grabs him and yells, "Yes, I think it can win. I think Charity's going to win." And Looney's reaction, what do you make of this? Looney's reaction.
Oh, he's still bringing him back down to earth. He's like, I think Charity's going to lose by a nose.
By a nose. Yeah, like
perpetually the pessimist.
Yes.
There's no way that you can win because something will go wrong. Charity's going to lose, and by a nose. Like, you're going to come so close and still be an utter failure.
Now, he is reacting to Trotter grabbing him and yelling in his face, which I understand, right? But at the same time, this is not the first time. In the previous scene, he kind of mentioned very, very dismissively, that horse could be a late scratch. And so here, it's not only is it going to lose by a nose. It's going to be very close, and it's going to break. Not only will you lose, it will break your heart at the same time. It's the worst kind of loss you can have. That's what you're getting. And then that's it. That's the end of this scene. So is there anything else that I'm missing here?
We talked about the line deliveries here, and I think Dreyfuss is immaculate in this movie, in this role. And we see that here. I wrote down every time he had a line delivery, and I mean, he only has so many lines, and all of them I've mentioned as like I've written down and noted. Even his reading of the "Go Fast and Win." I mean, this scene is as much about the exchange and the racetrack dynamics as the last one, but we've transplanted it to the track. In many ways, it's a continuation of that same conversation.
Yes.
We're getting the overlapping dialogue, the multiple characters there along the racetrack, the various attitudes toward horse racing, the way that they bet, this horse is terrible, this horse is great, and the logic is all jumbled and mixed up, and nobody knows anything.
So when Dreyfuss grabs him and yells yes, is it written that way that he's supposed to grab him, that he's supposed to yell yes, or was that a choice that maybe Dreyfuss made on his own? Do we have any?
I think that may have been a choice.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
I think that's performance.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm sure he's supposed to yell yes. I'm sure it's supposed to be yes, like he's annoyed because of course Looney's next line is a reaction to that line, but the grabbing and then the yelling in the face.
I think this is all Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
I think this the end of this scene is not written with any emphasis. It's not written for him to grab Looney. There's no emphasis on yes, I think Charity can win. The speech is different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same sentiment, but it picks different details to highlight.
Yes.
Like it's about the money in my pocket, and he's driving his wife's car because we talked, like, he gave the parking lot attendant situation that's in earlier in the script that has been excised, so that he's driving his wife's car is irrelevant.
Okay, yes. I saw that on, that's one of the deleted scenes on the DVD. And yeah, that's a scene where I go, yeah, I'm kind of glad we got rid of that, because that just, I don't know, that jibes that he's that confident rolling in that he's going to give away.
It doesn't really fit.
No, it doesn't.
Up until this point, he isn't really sure about anything.
Exactly. Yes.
This is when he's got his first dose of confidence, and he's like, yeah, this is going to work. And he's still only thinking about this one bet. That one bet doesn't save his life. This one bet doesn't fix his relationship. This one bet is just one bet. It'll be great if he wins. I'm sure he's like enthusiastic about this, but this is the first point where something like, so he's really acknowledging something magical, or the confidence that he's going to have today.
Yes. So another good choice to cut that scene. It seemed just odd. I remember watching it. I was like, yeah, I don't think this would be happening at this point in the movie, that he's tossing his car away.
Yeah, removing those scenes, at least the ones that we have available to us on the DVD,
right,
really streamlines this character. And we talked about the adaptation and how it's brought to the screen, and how Paramount felt about it, and telling them to reshoot or rejigger this or change that. And some of this was Joe Pitka's vision for this movie, and we talked about his music video background and the way he wants a film to move. And that certainly plays into it. And we'll never know exactly how much Paramount had to do with bringing this final version that we saw, but we'll just call it the collaborative process. The collaborative process that brought this to screen, it did its job. We do tend to label studios the bad guys, because more often than not, we hear about the ways they've butchered visionaries.
Always. That's always the story.
And yeah. And, maybe Let It Ride isn't a visionary movie by any means. Maybe we're not talking about Stanley Kubrick's Napoleon here.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true.
But as pop entertainment in the year that it was made, somebody got something right in what they wanted out of this movie. They then royally screwed it by not supporting its distribution, moving it up a month so that it's competing against summer blockbusters.
That, that is a good point, because I'm probably giving a little too much leeway to the studio. We know that it is the studio that want to change that first scene, but this other scene that we're talking about where Jay gives his car away, I don't know why that got dropped from the movie. It could be someone else's suggestion. Could be the editor's suggestion. I don't know. Could be Pitka. No idea. So
no idea.
So I should not be crediting Paramount with everything here.
No, they had influence that at face value seems positive, because we've forced them to streamline the film.
Yes.
And that was undertaken by the creative talent. And looking at this particular exchange holding a microscope on this end of the scene, which I think we have to 100% credit Dreyfuss' performance.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is one of the scenes where you start realizing, oh, well, this is definitely.
He's operating
Yeah.
on another level.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I hate to say something like that, but that's absolutely true. It doesn't happen with, I don't know. It's not every movie that he does where he's this magnetic, and I find him to be magnetic in just about everything. But it
Right.
does
And I'm talking about in terms of like Richard Dreyfuss's career arc.
absolutely.
Right. I mean, he's definitely a capable comic actor, but he is, more often than not, more of the straight man. You look at something like Stakeout, which is a fantastic comedy, but it's not this level of comedic performance, that's script, that's situational, that's not what's happening here. And he's gone on to do dramas. He's been excellent. But I think this movie kind of stands out among his specific comedic performances. And this exchange, talking about what's in performance and what's in the script, is Pitka allowing Dreyfuss to do something with the scene. And, I was watching because I noted that there wasn't any emphasis on, yes, I think charity can win, because that is such a emphasized line, especially after grabbing him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not here.
So that's coming out of the man himself. That's coming out of.
I think
best
that
performance.
that's coming out of there. Yeah, it's the individual creative choice that he's making with this. And you're looking at Looney to see how he reacts to it, see whether maybe there is some surprise, maybe they've rehearsed it that way. You don't know, but you like to think, right, that there's this moment of divine inspiration on set.
Yes.
That Dreyfuss is like doing it for the fifth or sixth time, and he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna grab him and go to town, and like that's the take, that's it, cut, print, we're done here.
Yeah, I would not want to know that he did that all 5 times.
No, you
Right?
want to believe
Yeah.
in that creative spark, that little bit of magic.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so just slightly different topic here. What are the other Richard Dreyfuss comedies that you would look at and say, oh no, wait, what about this one? Is there another Richard Dreyfuss comedy where you go, oh, you know what? No, this is on a similar level.
In terms of individual performance,
Yeah, and I think that the issue there is that if you look at the movies the man has made, not a lot of them are just straight comedies, right? So Stakeout,
No.
which is a great movie, love Stakeout, but there's also high drama going on in that film as well, right? And if you look, he's a guy who consistently kind of straddles that, what they used to refer to as comedy dramas. When you would look at it in the TV guide, it would have that listed as the genre, right? So like, whatever you've got, Goodbye Girl or Dirty Kravitz or whatever it is that you want to toss in there, they're all kind of in there. And a lot of times it seems as though the role is a little bit funnier because of how he plays it.
I think of something like Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
Yes.
That's one that I would probably cite. He's not as hyperbolic in that movie.
He's also not the lead. He's, is he the third character, would you say?
I think he's third.
Yeah.
I'd say he's third bill.
Yeah.
But in terms of his individual contribution, I might look at that one. You could even look at Moon Over Parador, which
For sure.
was released the year prior to Let It Ride, which has some of the same manic Dreyfuss
Absolutely, yes.
input, and maybe that's just a thing he was trying out. I don't really know, because in terms of like a sister film, in terms of just looking at performance, that's probably the one. I mean, it's not in the same league in my mind, even though I admit to really enjoying Moon Over Parador because, again, of their Dreyfuss performance.
I have not seen that in, 30 years.
Well, it's because we saw it again every other day on HBO in the late 80s, because
You have a solid point.
swear they just ran that.
This is absolutely
And that
true.
movie has a number of really fun performances in it. It's not as good as
Oh, yeah.
all of the people that are contributing to the movie.
That's true. I mean, but yeah, Raul Julia is having a great time in that film, as I
He is.
recall.
Jonathan Winters pops up, and
Oh, see, I don't even remember that Jonathan Winters is in that movie. No.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have to watch
Oh,
this
you
again.
you restore like Charo.
Oh,
and
ow.
Sammy Davis
Okay.
Jr. pops in.
Charo, oddly enough, I remember Charo, but I don't remember Jonathan Winters or Sammy Davis. What is going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Fernando Rey's in it, for goodness sakes. It's just it's one of those movies that I think people at this point might think was kind of a fever dream. Like maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, because it's not really well known anymore, and it was so omnipresent on cable television
Mm-hmm.
at that time. It was a not particularly well received movie that was cheap to play and was run all the time. And I am quite sure I owned that on VHS myself, and even went above and beyond and watched it on my own without HBO's influence.
Look at you.
That's crazy. I did watch it not too long ago. I busted out the DVD.
Oh, really? And how does it hold up for
couple
you?
Years ago. I still found it enjoyable.
Okay. I'm sure I would.
Part of it's
like
because I watched it and I was like, I still kind of feel this movie in my bones.
Yeah.
There's a handful of movies from that time period that were on all the time, and even when I think I've forgotten them, I kind of just slip right into them, and it's like, yeah, like I can still remember specific lines and dramatic beats, and it all comes flooding back whether I wanted to or not.
Okay, so it's not that long ago that I realized that it's Lorin Dreyfuss is the dictator in Moon Over Parador. Is that something that you're always aware of?
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
In fact, I'm not even aware of Lorin Dreyfuss until like maybe 2 years ago that I knew he existed. And I don't know if you've ever seen Detective School Dropouts with him. Okay, so
Yes. That's when I first realized there was another one.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Was that movie because it was on a like burn on it was on when a made to order DVD release from Sony, maybe. I don't remember. I'm trying to think of the box cover, but I picked it up because of the realization. I saw the actors in it. I'm like, that's weird.
Oh yeah, then once he starts talking, it's wait a second. What is happening here? Okay, this is most definitely a Dreyfuss. And speaking of Lorin, though, he's in the movie. He's in Let It Ride. I don't know where, though. I've never seen him. He's grandstand person, whatever that means. Does that mean he's an extra?
Okay, well, I've got another reason to rewatch it, I guess. I've never noticed him.
Okay, yeah, I am now hoping very much that I'll be able to spot him since I'm watching it one scene at a time. But yeah, I think he may be the last credited person in the movie. And also his daughter, who's an actress, Natalie, I think. Natalie Dreyfuss, who is also in it, and she's, I think, 2 or 3. And again, no idea. But things to look for, I guess, coming up.
And so to the other 2 movies I think I'd pick up. I mean, obviously, What About Bob? Because
absolutely.
He starts as a straight man and winds up manic Dreyfuss. And then the other comedic performance I think I had on my mind was Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Oh, that's true.
Again, he's a supporting player in that.
Okay, so
but again, it's a very crafty comedic performance.
It's a great performance in that one, and really an overlooked movie at this point. Are we going to toss in Krippendorf's Tribe?
I haven't seen that since the theater. I don't remember a thing about it.
All right. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to choose to keep it out of the conversation for right now. Okay, so... All right, so yeah, that's interesting, though, because all of the ones that we're talking about that we would look at and say, all right, these are the Dreyfuss comedies, right? Even if we want to put in Down and Out, and the ones where he's a third man, right? Rosencrantz.
Yeah.
It all starts with Down and Out, from what we're talking about. Down and Out in Beverly Hills, and Moon Over Parador, well, that's, one's 86, Parador's 88, Let It Ride, 89. So maybe, I don't know, is there just more of a push for him to get a little more comedic to kind of go with the comedy? I don't know.
Might be a symptom of the era as well.
Probably.
They became more pop culture, more light comedies were more popular later in the 80s. The last vestiges of the 70s were still hanging around at the beginning of the decade. And he didn't really work much at the beginning of the 80s
Oh yeah, he had maybe some issues going on.
because it also made, I mean, the Big Fix was
Yeah.
1978, and I really liked that movie, but after that, there's not a whole lot to speak of until Down and Out in
Yeah,
86.
he kind of I don't know, sort of disappears for a little bit. I really do love Whose Life Is It Anyway, which is not a comedy, but
No,
still
and it wasn't very popular either. I saw it not too long ago, but yeah, I mean, it's Dreyfuss and Cassavetes, so I mean, you get an idea of where that's going.
yeah, exactly. It's not going to be a fun time, but I do remember when I think about that movie, I think about his performance. He's
Yeah.
fairly spirited for a guy who can't walk. All right, so since you brought up What About Bob, I'm all right. So I'm just going to mention something. You tell me what you think. So Joseph Walsh, who plays Vibes,
Mhm.
who wrote California Split, he shows up in this movie. He brings his brother with him. He has right now sort of a memoir out, and it's really more of, I would say, a collection of anecdotes than a straight, autobiography, right?
Mhm.
And so I got this because I really wanted to see if he had anything interesting to say about Let It Ride. But as it turns out, he says zero about it. And the only time he mentions Richard Dreyfuss is that he is with Dreyfuss's manager, and Walsh and Dreyfuss's manager are betting on, I think, a basketball game. And the manager gets a call from Dreyfuss from the What About Bob set, and it's because Bill Murray had thrown a chair or something at him, maybe a ashtray, something like this.
Mhm.
And that's it. That's your only Richard Dreyfuss mention, even though he was in a movie with him. And I don't know what to think of that. I mean, it makes me wonder if he does not think that highly of the movie, or maybe it's just not interesting enough to put in a book. Yeah, I know. I've given you nothing to work. I've kind of given you nothing
Well,
to
it's like
work
who knows what sticks with, but
Yeah.
I think you can look at Let It Ride was dubbed a failure.
with. For sure.
And when a movie has that stigma to it, the studios kind of want to forget about it. The actors don't want to talk about it. It just gets pushed aside.
I suppose so. I mean, for him, I understand he did not have a particularly big role in Let It Ride. He pops up here and there. He does get to work with his brother. I don't know. You think that would be something. But yeah, I always just thought it was interesting that that didn't get brought up at all, especially because a lot of what he talks about is gambling. It's definitely a part of the guy's life, or was.
Well, it seems like you had the prompts there.
Yeah.
If you're talking about gambling and not bringing up Let It Ride,
Yeah.
but I really do think it speaks to sort of the movie production mentality. Whether a movie is good or not is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Did the movie make money?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is yes, we celebrate it. If the answer is no, what movie? there was a oh, now I'm going to struggle to come up with the book name. Final Cut.
Oh, okay. Yes. A classic.
Final Cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really digs into the success and failure based on financial status
Hmm.
in Hollywood. The way entire careers hinge on a bad bet, to use the gambling
Please do.
parlance. So in Final Cut, as people will have heard of Heaven's Gate as the greatest box office disaster that ever lived. Destroyed studios, destroyed careers. Michael Cimino was never heard from again. Except he did work.
Yeah. The movie.
But he himself was kind of swept under the rug.
The movie literally exploded when it was shown in theaters. It was that much of a bomb.
Yes. It was shown and pulled and recut and shown and pulled and went through this cycle of the studio trying desperately to recoup some of its obsessively millions of dollars that it invested into this art house Western blockbuster that nobody wanted to watch. And you're reading this book, you're getting pulled into this mentality whereby the dollar is the bottom line and the people who don't make the money are shuffled off and sent out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
And it does go into some of these things that I would, you think about when movies don't land. And I was thinking that about specifically because I talked about my experience with Tom Hanks and Joe versus Volcano when he thought I was joking that I said that it was my favorite of his movies, and I wanted to talk about why he abandoned comedy for drama, and the whole thing was met with, well, why wouldn't I? And why would you want to talk about that movie?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so.
And I'm like, but and it was like, I didn't have the opportunity because it was a roundtable conversation. Those 80s comedies, there's something that nobody else does. Like your performance quality in even like The Money Pit, like is very Hanksian. Like there is a way that you go about acting in a comedy that nobody else does.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And looking at Joe versus the Volcano again, and like that is a movie that maybe was weird for Hollywood standards because John Patrick Shanley had this specific vision and you inhabited that character 100%. And that was something that I can't see anyone else really succeeding at. So, and that movie was a failure as well. That it was sort of shuffled aside. Nobody wants to talk about it. It was a bomb, and it wasn't actually that unsuccessful. If that gives you an idea of how quickly these things that get these labels get pushed aside, and sometimes they make out alive. I mean, there is a devoted but small fan base for Joe versus Volcano, just as there is a very devoted but small fan base for Let It Ride.
I would think that Joe versus the Volcano has sort of developed into a bit of a cult favorite at this point. Am I wrong?
I think it has.
Okay.
I think it's developed some of that. I think that there's a lot more buzz about it now, even than there was 10, 15 years ago.
That Hanks would be surprised that you would like that movie. That really kind of surprises me that he doesn't seem to realize, what that movie was almost. Like, does he just look
right? And
that's so maybe this brings back.
That's what I'm digging into here is like, it's got the label. Like it was a failure. Why would I want to talk about it? Not even considering that this movie succeeded on so many unique levels. It is such a singular comedy that I have a hard time. I mean, I've loved it since the moment I saw it. So obviously I have a hard time looking at this and saying, how can you people not see something interesting here? Whether you like what it's doing or not is a different story, but it's doing something different and interesting. And maybe Let It Ride wasn't as out there in what it wanted to do, but it's still doing something very specific and it's really hitting its mark.
Yeah.
And as a crafted comedy, it is really well done. And to say like, to dismiss it as a sports movie or a gambling movie, when the way that it moves, the way that it's edited, the way that the script plays on screen, like these are very technical aspects of the film that are really well done.
Really well done. Absolutely. Yes. One of the things I love about it is just how it moves, how it is edited. When you brought up the editing earlier, immediately I always think of one of my favorite moments in the movie comes just a couple scenes later when we're waiting for the photo finish and it flashes what the winners are and you get the little sort of happy chimes in the background and then you see the horse, the guy who owns the horse, the guy who was making the fix was in, that guy, he like pumps his fist and it's just this quick succession of shots that tells you exactly what's going on, but it looks so cool how this sort of, I guess, montage, this really quick sequence plays out. And I always look at it and I go, look at that awesome editing. How quick it plays out, how there's something that's really kind of fluid and beautiful about that.
I mean, you could I really think you could study that last horse race as like a textbook example of how to cross-cut between. I mean, you're going back and forth between the people and the horses and the different glances and everybody having a slightly different perspective on the way that this horse race is going.
Oh yeah, Yeah, everyone's making
It's
deals.
technically, and you can look at other movies about horse racing to see how good it is by direct comparison. You don't have to look at it and it's like, oh, that's really. I mean, just on its own, you can see that it's really well done. Compare it to other horse races that have been captured on film.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think Let It Ride kills just about any other horse racing movie as far as the horse action is concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, and you know, it's interesting. I can't think of too many other horse race movies where, you know, if you watch, I don't know, Seabiscuit, whatever, you're more rooting for a horse and a guy who's maybe riding the horse or who owns the horse, as opposed to the people who are in the stands who are gambling. You know, the focus is just completely different.
That is a harder sell, admittedly. It is a harder sell.
Oh my God. Yeah, it is.
Rooting for the gambler.
Yes.
Than it is rooting for the horse.
Absolutely.
Seabiscuit is well made, but I'm not as excited by those races.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Absolutely.
It's there. I don't remember. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the races, but I nothing about that movie stands out in my brain.
I can't remember those races. I know that I liked that movie. I know that I thought it was good. I don't remember those races at all. Okay, so let's go ahead and
what about Hot to Trot? You remember those races?
Oh my God, Hot to Trot. Oh, so good. Also, the name of the last horse in Let It Ride. Oh yeah.
I know that there's some wonderful synthesis here between Hot to Trot.
Oh yeah. You know what? Maybe we should combine both movies in the podcast.
Scene by scene, Hot to Trot. Come on.
That's what I'll do after this one. Just what people are looking for.
I think I'm the only one that signs up for that.
Yeah, you probably are. Okay, so James, thank you very much for joining me again, discussing the fifth scene. Is that where we're at? We're at the fifth scene. Yeah, we're rolling right along here.
That's what you told me. The fifth scene.
Yes, this is the fifth scene of Let It Ride. So thank you very much for joining me on this one. I will probably pester you at some point in the future for another scene. You good for that?
I am good for whatever.
Okay.
And yes, I think Charity can win.
Yes. Well, I think Charity's going to lose by a nose.
Oh, what? Such a fucking pessimist.
What a jerk. It's a terrible thing to say. Thank you for visiting the Jockey Club, a look at the movie Let It Ride, one scene at a time. This episode was hosted, produced, and edited by me, Dan Delgado, and my guest was James David Patrick. Check out James's own podcast, Cinema Shame, wherever you get your podcasts. Music in this episode is from Epidemic Sound, and our podcast cover art is by Sean Labrie. If you enjoyed this episode, and I certainly hope you did, well, then you can feel free to leave us a review wherever it is that you can. Now, when I say leave a review, I mean a nice positive review. It may or may not help the show get noticed, but it will definitely make me feel good inside. Or better yet, you could just tell another Let It Ride fan about it. You can contact me through email if you want. It's dan@moviemaker.com. I am on Twitter @_Dan_Delgado. Or even better, I'm on the Repod app, which is a fantastic way to not only to listen to podcasts, but to interact with podcast hosts like me. Find it in your app store and come by and say hello. And again, thanks for listening.